Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program today, Nate Hochman joins us this hour at 4:30. We'll talk about whether or not Greenland will join the United States soon, as President Trump seems to want. Congressman Pat Fallon will be here at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about the Laken-Riley Act that just passed in the United States House, what it means for our country. And then Neil Patel, co-founder, publisher of the Daily Caller, is here at 5:30 as Facebook collapses its third-party fact-checking program and instead goes the community notes route. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. There's a lot going on in President Trump's life. He's now just, 13 days away, less than that, from becoming the 47th president of the United States. Did you see the image that he shared today of all of the presidents, by any chance, on Truth Social? It was hilarious. There's a picture of every single president. It's like one of those charts that you would hang up in an elementary school classroom to show you every president and who served. And all the way down, it gets to the 45th president, Donald J. Trump. The 46th president, it says something like the group of White House staffers, liberal White House staffers. And it's a picture of it's just a box with a bunch of silhouettes of a whole bunch of different people. And then it goes 47th president, Donald J. Trump. So that was really funny. I think it was Congressman Doug Collins who originally shared that today. One of them. It was Congressman Mike Collins who shared that today. It was great. It was really great. So that's what President Trump is up to. But 13 days to go until he returns. Today he hosted a big press conference where, first and foremost, he made an announcement that he was bringing in another $20 billion of investments from an organization and firm called DAMAC Properties. And he was very proud to do that. And then he talks about the world he's coming into, and the fact is that the Biden administration is trying to make things very difficult, that this is not a smooth transition, that Biden is doing everything, including banning all of this oil drilling off of our coast that we could use to really pull out a bunch of cheap, abundant American energy. Biden is getting in the way of that because the last thing he wants is for President Trump to be able to fix the mess that Biden has created for us. And here's what the president had to say about this. He made a bunch of statements and he answered a bunch of questions. It was over an hour today in another marathon press conference from President Trump.
We are inheriting a difficult situation from the outgoing administration, and they're trying everything they can to make it more difficult. Inflation is continuing to rage, and interest rates are far too high. And I've been disappointed to see the Biden administration's attempt to block the reforms of the American people and that they voted for. We had a landslide election. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of people.
Yeah. And the Biden administration's making things very difficult. In fact, President Trump was practically obsessed with the fact that Biden is attempting to forbid oil drilling in 625 million acres of water, which the president points out is a lot of water.
People can say we manufacture, we don't manufacture. The thing we have oil and gas more than anybody in the world. We're going to have more of it, too. But they took away 625 million acres of offshore drilling. Nobody else does that. And they think they have it, but we'll put it back. I'm going to put it back on day one. I'm going to have it revoked on day one. We'll go immediately if we need to. I don't think we should have to go to the courts, but if we do have to go to the courts, they try to be sneaky.
When a White House makes an announcement like this, we're banning oil drilling on 625 million acres of ocean. Normally, we don't think of acreage as ocean, but that's the surface area that they banned, 625 million acres. And President Trump was funny today because he kept mentioning that, most people don't own an acre of property, a single acre. It's a big deal. It's a big piece of land to own an acre of property. And some people are blessed to have that or more. But a lot of people, if you own acreage, maybe a quarter acre, maybe half an acre. He says an acre is a big piece of property. Now imagine 625 million of those. 625 million. That's what Biden banned in terms of oil drilling this week. And if we had a real press and a real White House, what is the most obvious question you might ask? if the president were in front of you. How does this help the American people? How does your decision improve the lives of the American people in any way? What is this for? What good does this do? And there is no answer to that question because it's not designed to do good. It's designed to prevent goodness. It's designed to prevent a way out of the mess that they've created. It's despicable is what it is. President Trump today getting a lot of headlines for the following statement. He was talking about the what we now know as the Gulf of Mexico, but perhaps not for long.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
You know, it's funny, as I was preparing for that piece of audio today, looking at it, immediately when I heard the president say that, I said, well, what? How many coastal miles of the Gulf of Mexico, as we now know it, belong to the United States versus Mexico? That is, how many miles of coastline do our respective countries have? And the unfortunate thing about the internet is it doesn't give you clear answers. I thought this would be an easy one. And it's not. It turns out it's not so easy. There were some of the results indicated that the United States has more coastline. Others say no, Mexico still has more coastline on the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know how they're measuring this, and I don't have time to get a piece of measuring tape out and walk the whole Gulf myself to figure out the answer to this question. But the closest thing I can give you as of this hour is it's pretty close. It's pretty close. It's about equal in terms of the terrain, in terms of the coastline between the United States and Mexico. Cuba has a small number because part of that island is right on the Gulf of Mexico. But the rest is Mexico and the United States of America. And who is the 10,000-pound gorilla in this relationship? That would be the United States of America. Now, Mexico is probably just going to ignore us, I would guess, if we decided to change the name officially. It's now the Gulf of America. Thank you very much. Maybe they'll ignore us. Maybe they'll play ball. Maybe Trump will force them to change their maps so that the Gulf of America is established. Also, why would Mexico have too much of a beef with this? Aren't they a part of America? Are they part of North America? We're in the Americas. It should be the Gulf of America. That, in fact, is the most unifying thing imaginable. So President Trump raising that today. Isn't that one of those? That's a great Trump thing. This is one of my favorite things about Trump is sometimes he brings up something that should be so obvious, but that almost no one else has actually said out loud or really put much thought into. You go your whole life thinking, oh, the Gulf of Mexico. That's the nice side of Florida without all the waves. That's kind of cool, the Gulf of Mexico. And meanwhile, President Trump saying, why do we call it the Gulf of Mexico? Why don't we just call it the Gulf of America? And to which millions of people in unison say, well, that's a great idea. Now, how come I never thought of that? There you go. So the Gulf of America today. He didn't stop there. President Trump has big visions for reestablishing American dominance in the Western Hemisphere. He also talked about the Panama Canal today, once again, and how China is essentially operating the thing now. China's sphere of influence includes the Panama Canal, and that Jimmy Carter, he has to say, on this day, as there's a procession, literally as we speak, carrying Jimmy Carter's body to the Capitol building. But President Trump said, look, Jimmy Carter made a mistake when he gave up the Panama Canal.
The Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages. The hostages were a big deal. But if you remember, and nobody wants to talk about the Panama Canal now because, it's inappropriate, I guess, but because it's a bad part of the Carter legacy. But he was a good man. Look, he was a good man. I knew him a little bit, and he was a very fine person, but that was a big mistake. Giving the Panama Canal to Panama was a very big mistake. We lost 38,000 people. It cost us the equivalent of $1 trillion, maybe more than that. Probably the most expensive, they say it was the most expensive structure, if we call it a structure, which I guess you can, ever built. And giving that away was a horrible thing. And I believe that's why Jimmy Carter lost the election, even more so than the hostages. Those two things.
Yeah, we built it. We gave it away for a song, and that was idiotic. We should have never done that. It's President Trump and saying now China is all up in our business, and that should have never happened. And that's what he wants to change. You heard him mention hostages. That's only loosely connected. Just the word itself is the reason I'm jumping to this next thing. Because we still have hostages being held by Hamas. And President Trump addressed that today and said, look, first of all, you can tell, I mean, even during the election, President Trump's desire is that this all get resolved even before he take office, that Hamas and all of the affiliated terror groups should be on notice that you really don't want to keep American hostages while President Trump is in office. Here's what he had to say on the subject.
That all hell must be paid if we don't release the
You know what that
hostages.
means, don't you?
Well,
do I have to define it for you? Look, all
No, I know
hell
you're not
will
gonna
break out.
telegraph
If
what-
those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is. And they should have given them back a long time. They should have never taken them. They should have never been the attack of October 7th. People forget that.
Yeah, with President Trump today was his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, who was standing there alongside the president. And he said, according to the Jerusalem Post, who wrote this up, that he thinks the hostage talks are significantly progressing right now. Significantly progressing. And he said, quote, well, I think we're making a lot of progress. And I don't want to say too much because I think they're doing a really good job back in Doha. He added that he hopes to have good things to report about the Israeli hostages held by Hamas in Gaza by the time Trump is sworn in as president on January 20th. He said, quote, I think that we've had some really great progress, and I'm really hopeful that by the inaugural, we'll have some good things to announce on behalf of the president. By the inaugural. So that's 13 days from now. And Steve Witkoff seems to be telegraphing that even before he's president of the United States, they're making progress in these negotiations, which is interesting considering, wasn't Mike Flynn, didn't he have his life destroyed for talking to foreigners before the presidency, even though he was the incoming national security advisor? Isn't that the case? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the left likes destroying people's lives for no reason, just because they support the other guy and because that they're a threat to the deep state. That's the reason. You destroy them. It's remarkable. But President Trump working to get the hostages out and making that threat today that all hell will break out in the Middle East if those hostages are not released. Additionally, he talked about an attempt to acquire Greenland. Don Jr. was in Greenland today. I saw he was there with Charlie Kirk, who has a bunch of good posts on his own social media accounts today, including taking off in Trump Force One. He's sitting in the cockpit today. What a cool experience that is, as they took off from Greenland. But they spent some time. They were walking around Greenland today. They were meeting with people. People were wearing MAGA hats. A lot of enthusiasm as Don Jr. was there. And here's what President Trump had to say about all of it.
Back on Greenland, your position is clear, but have you directed your staff to take specific actions to draw plans? And can you elaborate again? You didn't rule out military coercion in addition.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know.
Should be easy to conquer.
If Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
I mean, listen to this guy. So he's talking about, the Western Hemisphere, the sphere of influence of the United States of America. Everything from that far northeast up to Greenland, down to Panama, renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. He's got some plans, doesn't he? Kind of a modern-day Monroe Doctrine. We got to protect the Western Hemisphere. And because Trump's for it, the left is against it, no matter what he says. It doesn't matter. That's so stupid. Who would do that? What, are you going to conquer them? Are you going to send the military? Oh, he left out Canada. He wants to make Canada the 51st state. I'm always hesitant when people start raising the whole, let's make them a state. Remember, you make a new state, you get 2 more senators. Let's carefully assess before we start introducing states. Maybe we can make them a territory. We'll give them a probationary period before the whole state thing. All right, Chris is calling in from Marshall now, line 5. Hello, Chris. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. I hope you're having a great day. Listen, the battle cry was never Muzga. It wasn't make the U.S. great again. It was MAGA, make America great again. And in my estimation, that includes North, Central, and South. Besides, it's not the Gulf of the United States. It's the Gulf of America. He's being inclusive.
That's right.
Consistency. Trump is going to make the far Western Hemisphere dominate the next 150 years.
Amen. Yeah, I'm all for representing all of America so long as they're a part of America. If they join the country, they're in on the greatness. Those are the rules. That's the arrangement. Hey, thanks, Chris. Yeah, no, it's funny. What if the end of this term involves him taking Greenland, Canada, Panama, renaming the Gulf of Mexico, and then Elon's able to get some people on Mars? We'll claim that for America, too, obviously. Not too bad. American Empire reborn. Coming up, Nate Hochman will join us. We'll talk about Greenland and its strategic importance. It's not that green, but it's important. Hey, good afternoon to you. 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Congressman Pat Fallon joins us at 5 o'clock as the United States House today passes the Laken-Riley Act to try and get control of this border. And Neil Patel, the co-founder and publisher of the Daily Caller, my friend, he'll be here at 5:30. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. President Trump had a lot to say today about all of the various locations on the planet that he thinks should be American, a part of America, or at least controlled by us, including Panama, as well as, specifically the Panama Canal, Canada, and Greenland. Canada would be good because then at least you wouldn't have to leave the country to get to Alaska. You could just go right through all America all the way. You know, we got to get those things connected, don't we? But Greenland, Don Jr., the president's son, of course, went to Greenland today, brought a camera crew with him, talked to the media while he was there, and this is what that sounded like.
Yeah, it looks like an incredible place. I've been talking about going for a while. I was actually supposed to be here last spring. Some of the stuff I do in my free time. But just really excited to be here. Awesome country. The scenery coming in was just spectacular.
A little hard to hear. He says an incredible place, awesome country. The scenery is spectacular.
So I'm very excited to be here. He says hello. Okay.
My father says hello.
We were talking to him yesterday, so he says hello to everyone in Greenland.
Okay, are you still interested in buying Greenland?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, and then he also filmed this video talking about being in the capital.
Guys, we're here in Nuuk, Greenland. This is the founder, 1721. That yellow house with the red top, that was his original spot. That's where he moved. This is where it all started out here. Just incredible scenery. Super cool stuff.
President Trump himself also called Don Jr. while he was there. They put that on speakerphone for the assembled crowd to hear.
Don't hear now. My son, and he's a real hunter, fisherman, and all the things that you love. And I thought it'd be great to go up there with his 2 very talented friends and the other group, a lot of other people. So I just want to say that it's a very special place. It needs security for itself, but it also needs security very much for the world. The location really, you see the people and the ships sailing around, and they're not the right ships, and they're not the ships you want to know about. So we need security, and our country needs it, and the whole world needs it.
Yes.
It's so strategically located.
Yeah.
You are right.
You guys like that, right? President Trump saying it's critical for security, also critical for shipping lanes. Important territory, Greenland. For more on this, Nate Hochman joins us now, senior advisor to America 2100. Nate, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, good to see you, Vince.
All right, so a couple years back, President Trump starts mentioning this. The media, as you note today on an excellent thread on X, they were mocking this. They thought this was like a joke or something. But he stuck with it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, back when he originally floated this in 2019, I mean, as is often the case with Trump, it was a little tongue-in-cheek. He was posting the picture of the Trump Tower, over Greenland, et cetera. But there's a real case for it, and that was the case that he was making all the way back in 2019. And the Prime Minister of Denmark, which owns Greenland at the time, dismissed it and called it absurd. But as of this month, Greenland's leader, who has been pro-independence from Denmark for a while, has announced that they've set things in motion, essentially, to have some kind of referendum, likely sometime this year, about declaring their independence from Denmark altogether, which would make them essentially a free agent. It would mean that at the very least, it would be available. We wouldn't have to buy them from Denmark or something. We could strike a deal with them independently of the Danes. So all of a sudden, this thing that seems to have been a joke or sort of tongue-in-cheek jest just a few years ago seems like, at the very least, it's a possibility now.
Yeah, in that scenario, if they go independent, then theoretically we could turn them into a territory of the United States, give them all the benefits of U.S. citizenship. They don't have to pay income taxes, and they could be American sovereign territory, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think the political leadership in Greenland right now has said, we're not for sale. We're not interested in being bought by anybody. Of course, every time in history that America has bought something, Alaska, the Louisiana Purchase, et cetera, it started by the previous owners saying they're not for sale. So that's not necessarily a permanent no.
Right.
It's a no right now. But it is true that, Greenland, for survival, they depend on Denmark, which is wealthier, which can give them defense and funding, et cetera. They don't have a very advanced, developed economy. So if they do go independent, they will need a bigger, more powerful country and economy to offer them those kinds of things that Denmark was offering them. Yes. And so they'll have to look somewhere. And I think America makes a lot of sense.
President Trump talks a lot. You even heard him on that speakerphone call about the strategic importance of Greenland, of the fact that there are all sorts of adversarial ships that are moving in the area that we need to be concerned about. What do you make of that?
Right. This is, for all of the sort of, elite liberal scoffing at this proposal from Trump, as if this is a totally unserious idea. China doesn't think this is an unserious idea, clearly, because they've been extraordinarily aggressive about trying to move into the region in and around Greenland over the last few years. They tried to buy a former U.S. military base there. They've been trying to set up their own Arctic operation there because it is an extremely strategically important part of the world because of these big shipping lanes. And it's becoming more strategically important because these shipping lanes are growing. They're expanding. They're going to become more strategically important in the coming years. And both China and Russia have their eye on that part of the world. So it makes sense that we should too.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very important place. In terms of the broader perspective, you hear President Trump talking about Canada. Again, this starts as kind of something that sounds like tongue-in-cheek, but he keeps saying it, and eventually you're thinking, okay, well, maybe he's on to something here, trying to bring Canada into the United States in some capacity, talking about getting control of the Panama Canal, especially because of the threat that's posed by China and its operations there, and as we're discussing right now, taking over Greenland as well. It's President Trump is such an interesting phenomenon because he's a guy who has this view that we need to take care of Americans first, and simultaneously he seems to be trying to sort of grow our territorial boundaries at the same time. What do you make of the psychology or of what's motivating him?
Yeah, well, the Panama Canal is the least sort of out there or controversial of the three. I mean, giving up the Panama Canal, giving over, relinquishing control of it was very controversial at the time when America did it. And actually, Ronald Reagan was staunchly opposed to ever giving up control
Yes.
of the Panama Canal. He said, we built it, we paid for it, it's ours, right? So he lost that debate, but I think Trump is totally on side in bringing that debate back up. I don't think we ever should have given it up. In terms of his sort of view of the world, Trump is not and has never been an isolationist. He's been an America firster.
Yeah.
There's a difference between saying, the use of American power abroad should be done in the interests of America rather than, international interests, and saying we should never use our power abroad. We should use our power abroad, but it should be for us, not for other people, not for, international elites, et cetera.
Yeah. But this is getting back to kind of an older view that America's leaders once took about our sphere of influence and how to control things. Certainly, I guess the most recent example of it is like the serious concern about the Soviets and their reach during the Cold War. But prior to that, of course, the Monroe Doctrine, the attempts to keep the Western Hemisphere in America's sphere of influence. Teddy Roosevelt also had his own corollary to exert influence over the Western Hemisphere. President Trump, for the first time in a long time, is a president who seems very interested in securing an entire hemisphere on behalf of the United States.
That's exactly right. And, I think he's totally right about that. I think America is a superpower. It would be foolish not to use that power as aggressively as possible to secure our interests, to secure American interests, to secure the interests of the American people. I think the problem over the last 40 years or so is that American leaders have lost confidence in ourselves, in our country. They felt that there's something wrong or immoral or cruel about America pursuing its interests aggressively. And Trump doesn't feel like that. And I think that's refreshing to a lot of people.
Right. And a lot of that is animated by the self-loathing that the left has been preaching for so long, which is that America is broken. It's a bad place. America is evil. It's responsible for all sorts of destruction, and you shouldn't have any pride in it. Well, then, of course, when somebody talks about expanding America's footprint, then the very same left defaults to the idea, well, no, we don't deserve any of this. We don't even deserve borders for the country that we have.
That's exactly right. And, I think that thinking has actually even infected some of the sort of hawkish neoconservative wings of the right, where for them, they are very interested in projecting American power abroad, but it can't really be about us. It has to be about human rights, about spreading democracy. It has to be on behalf of anyone and everything under the sun except for the American people.
Yeah.
So, both sides have really sort of shied away from aggressively pursuing our interests.
Well, I've noticed in that latter example that a lot of that American power projection has nothing to do with our own borders. So it is on other continents, in other conflicts. You get Michelle Obama posing for Instagram photos about Boko Haram. And yes, that's what Boko Haram is doing is a complete nightmare. But meanwhile, American power brokers seem to have either little interest or straight contempt for the idea that America can preserve its own border, when the cartels and in concert with the Chinese are killing nearly 100,000 Americans a year, and no serious effort to try and stymie the cartels and what they're up to.
No, precisely. I mean, the border is a perfect example. If any serious look at mass migration to end the immigration crisis to America, you can have every border security proposal you want and implement it. But to truly stem the tide, you actually need to be pretty aggressive south of the border, right? You need to force South American countries to accept the people you want to deport. You need, those repatriation agreements.
Yes.
You need to get South American countries to intercept migration flows as they come up to the border. You can't just build a wall, although obviously you do need to build a wall. Mm-hmm. You need to use American power and exert it on other countries in our hemisphere if you're actually going to do those things. That's how you secure the border. And I think, Trump understands that.
Finally, as watching Trump as you do and kind of seeing how he operates and the ideas that he's now floating and the efforts he's pursuing, it does seem to me that maybe as he's getting a little bit older, but certainly having been through the ringer, already been president of the United States before, he has a self-confidence right now that I don't think I've ever seen. And this is a guy who overflows with ego for sure, overflows with confidence, but he almost seems relaxed as he undertakes this second go at the presidency. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I think, anyone who's been through what President Trump has been through and made it out the other side probably does gain even some extra confidence. But I also think, he won this historic election with a historic electoral mandate. This is what actually exercising your electoral mandate looks like. He was given, the support of the majority of the American people. And that means that I think he's immune from some of the criticisms that the left tried to throw at him the first time around. And this is what a Trump presidency in the wake of that is going to look like.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch it take place, and we're not even there yet. It starts in 13 days. In the meantime, Nate Hochman, thank you very much for coming on. Happy New Year to you. Always good to chat, sir. All right, let's see. To the phones we go. Brian calling in from Front Royal, line 2. Brian, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. How you doing, brother? Hey, listen,
good.
Real quick. Yeah, great, man. Hey, Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
I don't understand why we're not engaging Cuba. I mean, Cuba is right in our back door.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Castro is gone. Defeat communism right there in Cuba.
Mm-hmm. Bring
Cuba into the fold. Mercedes and Matt Schlapp might already be working the deal. I mean, she's Cuban. Marco Rubio coming into the State Department, he might have a plan. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Greenland's great, wonderful. Cuba's right there, ready to go.
I mean, so one of the issues that jumps right to the top of the problems here is that the commies still control Cuba. So unlike kind of the availability of Greenland here, the Castro's handpicked successor is still in charge. The guy who is one of the leaders of the Communist Party of Cuba is currently running the show down there. So
what? I hate to interrupt, but okay, Arafat could have had a state in Gaza. Mm-hmm. He didn't. He wanted 100%. Dude, we don't need to win 100%. We need to win 30%, and then go for 50%. We need to do it incrementally. Mm-hmm. I mean, so what if the communists are still? So what?
Well, I think this goes into just the feasibility, the art of the achievable right now, and if President Trump brings it up, then you'll know it's on at that point. But right now, the places he's prioritized seem to be Greenland, the Panama Canal. He's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico. That's us moving towards Cuba. There you go, and maybe Canada. So he's got some big plans. We'll add Cuba to the list. We'll see if he comes out with something on that.
The art of the deal, brother.
Thanks, Brian. Brian in Front Royal. Yeah, Cuba's right nearby. It's a nice place. They've got classic cars. Let's take it over. Ron is calling in from Northwest D.C. now, line 1. Hello, Ron. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for being the voice of truth.
Thanks, Ron.
Without you and stuff, a lot of people would be ignorant, and we wouldn't know what the hell they're doing to us.
Oh, man. Thank you.
My short question, what you have a short time for me right here, is to be quick and as I can. Are we going to go through the same Russia hoax and the Stormy Daniels and stuff? Mm-hmm. Like a sequel to a movie or what?
Yes, we will. But here's the upside, Ron. So the basic question here that Ron's putting out is, are we going to see the media's behavior be just as awful and stupid and conspiratorial as it was the first Trump presidency? Yes, we will. But the nice thing is they have so devalued their currency, and these stories are defeated so quickly now that their shelf life is virtually non-existent. They spoil instantly. The expiration date is years ago, and the rest of us are the better off for it. They've lost the trust of the American people, and it's well-deserved. So, yes, Ron, they will lie about him and his presidency. And meanwhile, the rest of us will laugh at them if we even see them saying this crap at all. Coming up, Congressman Pat Fallon will be with us. He'll talk about the Laken-Riley Act. Very big. It just passed the House. And Neil Patel from the Daily Caller talks to us about that big decision by Facebook to get rid of its corrupt, quote, fact-checking system.